Caroline Hayes learned she'd been sold on a Tuesday morning while sorting through her father's desk looking for the deed to their dying ranch. The contract was tucked between unpaid bills and foreclosure notices, written in her father's shaking hand and signed by William Garrett, the wealthiest cattle baron in 3 territories. 20 Longhorn cattle. Delivered 3 years ago. Payment due on her 18th birthday, which was now 6 days away. The payment wasn't money. It was her. She stood in her father's study holding the paper that turned her into livestock, her hands steady even as her world tilted sideways. The ink was 3 years old. The agreement older. Which meant every meal she'd eaten, every dress he'd bought her, every time he'd called her his precious girl. All of it had been bought with borrowed time on her own life. The morning sun came through the dusty window, turning the contract paper golden, making the words almost beautiful. She read it 3 times to make sure she understood. Caroline Rose Hayes, eldest daughter, upon reaching her 18th year, to be wed to William Garrett in settlement of debt and contractual obligation. Legal language for selling your child. Pretty words for a transaction that made her stomach turn to acid. She walked to her room, the small space under the eaves where she'd grown up dreaming of a future that apparently belonged to someone else. Her mother's wedding dress hung in the closet, yellowed with age and moth-eaten at the hem. Her father had brought it down from the attic 2 weeks ago, told her to try it on, said something about tradition. She understood now. He'd been preparing her for delivery. Caroline pulled the dress down and laid it on the bed. Then she packed a bag. Not the nice leather case her father had given her last Christmas. The old canvas rucksack she used when riding fence line. Practical clothes. Work boots. The money she'd saved from selling eggs in town. $47 hidden in a tobacco tin under her floorboard. Not enough to build a life. Enough to buy a few weeks of freedom while she figured out what freedom actually meant. She could hear her father downstairs, his morning cough, the shuffle of his feet across wooden floors. Thomas Hayes, broken man, broken rancher, broken father. She'd loved him once with the uncomplicated devotion daughters give their fathers. Then her mother died and something in him died with her. He'd spent the last 5 years watching their ranch crumble while doing nothing to stop it, like grief had paralyzed his ability to fight. Now she understood. He hadn't been paralyzed. He'd been waiting for her to turn 18 so he could cash in the deal that kept them afloat for 3 more years. Caroline walked downstairs with her bag. Her father stood at the stove making coffee, his back to her, his shoulders hunched like a man expecting a blow. Found the contract. Her voice came out calm. Strange how anger could sound like ice. His shoulders tensed. He didn't turn around. Caroline, William Garrett's coming for me in 6 days. I can explain. 20 cattle in exchange for your daughter. That's what I'm worth. 20 cows. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. Tell me how selling your child is different than it sounds. Thomas turned then. He looked older than his 50 years. Worn down to the studs. Eyes red from drink and regret. We would have lost everything. The bank was going to take the ranch. Your mother's grave is on this land. I couldn't lose that. Couldn't lose her twice. So you decided to lose me instead. Garrett's a good man. Wealthy. He'll take care of you. Give you a life I never could. He's 43 years old and buried 2 wives already. The town whispers that both died young and scared. That's just talk. Is it? Because you never once asked me if I wanted this. Never told me. Just sold me and spent 3 years pretending you were still my father instead of my broker. Caroline, I'm leaving. Right now. I won't be here when he comes. You can't. The contract. The contract's between you and him. I didn't sign anything. I'm not property. She walked past him toward the door. His hand caught her arm. You walk out, you lose everything. This ranch, your inheritance, your family name. I already lost my family the day you signed that paper. The rest is just buildings and dirt. She pulled free and walked out into the morning that was bright and clear and full of terrible possibility. The ranch hands were already working. Mending fences, feeding livestock, the daily ritual of keeping a dying place alive a little longer. Caroline walked straight to the corral where Jesse Cole was saddling his horse. Jesse was 22, quiet, competent, the kind of ranch hand who did good work and kept to himself. He'd been working her father's land for 2 years. They'd spoken maybe a dozen times. But she'd noticed the way he looked at her father sometimes, like he was calculating something, measuring, judging. I need your help. Caroline dropped her bag at his feet. Jesse looked down at the bag, then up at her face. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or calculation. What kind of help? The kind where you ride out of here with me right now and don't ask questions for at least 20 miles. Your father know about this? My father sold me to William Garrett. I'm not asking your permission or his. I'm asking if you're the kind of man who helps or the kind who looks the other way when something wrong is happening. Jesse was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up her bag, tied it to his saddle, and held out his hand. Can you ride? Better than you probably. Then let's find out. They rode out as the sun climbed higher. Two people on horseback leaving everything behind at a gallop that felt like flying and fleeing in equal measure. Caroline didn't look back. Looking back was for people who had something worth returning to. By noon they were 15 miles north, following the creek that ran along the territorial border. Jesse hadn't asked questions, hadn't demanded explanations. Just rode beside her like this was normal, like women ran away from sold contracts every day, and he was used to being the accomplice. When they finally stopped to water the horses, Caroline spoke first. I'm not asking you to marry me or save me or any of that nonsense. I just needed someone who could ride and wouldn't drag me back. Figured that. So why'd you help? Essie was quiet, looking at the creek like it had answers. Your father's not a good man. I've known that for a while. But selling you to Garrett, that's worse than not good. That's evil dressed up as necessity. You know Garrett? Know of him. Worked a season on his spread 2 years back. Left because I saw things I couldn't stomach. He looked at her directly. He's cruel to animals. Crueler to women. If you'd gone with him, you wouldn't have lasted a year. The words settled like stones in her stomach. My father knew this? Everyone knows. They just don't talk about it because Garrett's rich and rich men get away with being monsters. Caroline sat down hard on the creek bank. The weight of almost, the horror of what she'd escaped, hit her all at once. He was going to send me anyway. Debt makes people do terrible things. It wasn't just debt, though. The ranch is failing, but it's not that bad. We have land, cattle, resources. If he'd asked me, I could have helped save it. I'm good with numbers. Good with management. But he never asked. Just sold me like I was already gone. Maybe that's what he needed you to be. Gone. Maybe keeping you around reminded him too much of your mother. The observation was too accurate. Caroline had been told her whole life she looked like her mother. Same dark hair, same stubborn chin, same eyes that saw through pretense. After her mother died, her father started looking through her instead of at her. Like she was a ghost he couldn't bear to acknowledge. How much further to the border? She asked. Another day's ride. There's a town there, Cedar Ridge. Big enough to disappear in. You have money. Some. Enough for a few weeks maybe. Then what? Then I figure out who I am when I'm not somebody's daughter or somebody's bargain. They rode until sunset, making camp in a hollow where the wind wouldn't find them. Jesse built a fire. Caroline unpacked the bread and cheese she'd stolen from her father's kitchen. They ate in silence that wasn't uncomfortable, just present. They'll come looking, Jesse said finally. Your father will send men. Garrett will send more. I know. Garrett won't let this go. 20 longhorns is a lot of cattle, but it's not about the cattle. It's about the principle. You running makes him look weak. Makes your father look like a welcher. Men like Garrett kill people over less. Then I'll keep running. For how long? As long as it takes for them to realize I'm not coming back. That could be never. Then I'll run forever. Jesse poked at the fire with a stick, watching sparks fly into the night. There's another option. We could go to the territorial marshal. File a complaint. The contract might not be legal. You were a minor when it was signed. You never consented. And what? Hope the law sides with a poor rancher's daughter over a rich cattle baron. Hope they care that my father sold me? The law doesn't protect women. It protects property. I'd just be trading one cage for another. So what's the plan then? I don't have a plan. I just have the not plan of refusing to go back. Jesse smiled at that. Small but real. That's a start. They took turns sleeping, keeping watch for riders that didn't come that night, but would come eventually. Caroline lay looking at the stars, thinking about her mother's grave on land she'd never see again, about her childhood bedroom and the things she'd left behind, about the life that had been chosen for her and the life she was choosing instead. Morning came cold and clear. They broke camp fast and rode hard, pushing the horses but not breaking them. By midday they spotted riders behind them. 3 men, maybe 4, too far to identify, but close enough to be real. "That's your father's men," Jesse said. "Or Garrett's. Either way we need to move." They ran. The horses were tired, but fear is a powerful motivator. The riders behind them closed the distance slowly, inevitably, like debt coming due. By late afternoon they reached Cedar Ridge, a sprawling town that smelled like cattle and commerce and possibility. They ditched the horses at a livery, paid the owner to claim he'd never seen them, and disappeared into the crowds. Caroline had never been in a town this big. The streets teemed with people, miners, ranchers, merchants, women in dresses fancier than anything she'd ever owned. She felt simultaneously invisible and exposed, like everyone could see she was running, but no one cared enough to stop her. Jesse led her to a boarding house run by a woman named Martha, who asked no questions when he paid for a week in advance. Rooms upstairs. Door locks from inside. Someone comes asking about a girl. "I never saw you." "Why are you helping?" Caroline asked when they were alone in the small room with its narrow bed and water-stained walls. "Because someone should. Because your father's going to regret selling you, and Garrett's going to regret thinking he could buy you. And maybe because I know what it's like to run from a life someone else planned for you." "What were you running from?" "A father who drank. An older brother who hit. A future that looked like a grave." Jesse moved toward the door. "I'll be across the hall. You need anything, knock." "Jesse, what do you get out of this?" "Really?" He paused in the doorway, looked back. Maybe the chance to do one right thing in a life full of wrong choices. 3 days passed. Caroline stayed in the room mostly, venturing out only to buy food and newspaper. The newspaper was how she learned her father had posted a reward. $500 for information leading to her return. The notice described her as confused and in need of protection. No mention of the contract. No mention that he'd sold her. Just a grieving father looking for his lost daughter. The lies made her angrier than the truth. On the 4th day, Jesse burst into her room without knocking. His face was tight with urgency. "Garrett's here. In town. He's got 10 men with him. They're going door to door. Looking for me? Looking for both of us. Someone talked. They know I rode out with you. What do we do? You have 2 choices. Run again or face him. Facing him means going back." "Not necessarily." Jesse pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "I've been asking questions. Found a lawyer who specializes in contract law. He says the agreement's probably not enforceable. You were a minor. There was no consideration given to you directly. It's basically slavery dressed up as marriage contract. Garrett won't care what's legal." "No, but the town might. If you make this public. If you stand up in the town square and tell everyone what your father did, what Garrett tried to do, public opinion's a powerful thing. Even rich men need the goodwill of the community. Or they could just decide I'm a disobedient daughter who needs to be taught a lesson. They could. But Caroline, hiding forever isn't living. At some point you have to plant your feet and fight." She thought about her mother, who'd been brave in quiet ways, who'd stood up to her father when he drank too much, who'd taught Caroline that being soft didn't mean being weak. What would her mother do? Run or fight? "If I do this, if I go public, what happens to you? You helped me escape. Garrett will come after you too. I've been running my whole life. Maybe it's time I planted my feet too." That afternoon, Caroline walked into the town square. She wore her work clothes, her mother's locket, her father's stubbornness. Jesse walked beside her, but slightly behind, support without ownership. The square was full. Market day. People buying and selling, conducting the business of living. Caroline climbed onto the bandstand where musicians played on Saturday nights. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "My name is Caroline Hayes. 6 days ago, I learned my father sold me to William Garrett for 20 longhorn cattle." The square went quiet. Conversations stopped. People turned. "I was 17 when he signed the contract. He never asked me. Never told me. Just made an agreement that turned his daughter into property. And when I found out, when I refused to be traded like livestock, he sent men after me. Called me confused. Said I needed protection. But the only thing I need protection from is men who think women can be bought and sold. She could see Garrett now, pushing through the crowd. Tall, silver-haired, face red with fury. Her father was with him, looking smaller, defeated. I'm not merchandise, Caroline continued, voice rising. I'm not a bargaining chip or a debt payment. I'm a person, and I'm standing here publicly refusing this agreement. If Mr. Garrett wants his cattle back, he can take them up with my father. But he can't have me. I won't go. You signed a contract. Garrett's voice boomed across the square. I signed nothing. My father signed. Without my consent. Without my knowledge. That's not a contract. That's slavery. You owe me. Garrett was climbing onto the bandstand now. Your father took my cattle. There's a debt. Then collect it from him. Sue him. Take his land. But you can't take me because I'm not his to give. The crowd was murmuring now. Caroline could see faces, some sympathetic, some scandalized, some angry. Women especially, watching with sharp attention, maybe seeing their own almost futures in her rebellion. A daughter owes obedience to her father, Garrett said. It's biblical. It's law. Is it? Because I can't find anywhere in the Bible that says fathers should sell their daughters. Can't find anywhere in the law that makes that legal either. Caroline held up the paper Jesse had gotten from the lawyer. This contract is void. Unenforceable. Made without my consent when I was a minor. Any judge would throw it out. No judge will see it if you're my wife. I'll die before I'm your wife. That can be arranged. The threat hung in the air. The crowd gasped. Even in 1891 Montana, even in a town used to rough justice, threatening a woman in public was too far. Sheriff Davies pushed through the crowd. That's enough, Garrett. You just threatened a girl in front of 100 witnesses. She owes me. She owes you nothing. If you have a dispute with Thomas Hayes, you take it to court. But you lay one hand on this girl, I'll arrest you. Rich or not. Garrett's face went purple. He looked at Caroline with hatred so pure it was almost clean. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Caroline didn't blink. Didn't back down. You can threaten me. You can try to force me. But you can't make me yours. I won't go. I won't submit. I'll fight you every day for the rest of my life if I have to. And every person in this square just heard me say it. Thomas Hayes stepped forward then. Caroline, please, come home. We'll figure this out. Figure what out? How to sell me to someone else. How to trade me for different cattle. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose 20 cows over your daughter. That's not a mistake. That's a betrayal. Your mother would want you to come home. The words were a knife, but Caroline didn't flinch. My mother would want me to be free. She spent her whole life trapped on that ranch with a man who loved his grief more than his family. I won't do the same. I won't trap myself in a life I don't want just because walking away is hard. So what then? You'll live in town? Work as a seamstress? A laundress? You think that's better than being Garrett's wife? Yes. Because it's my choice. My life. My future. Not something you bartered away for livestock. She climbed down from the bandstand. The crowd parted. Jessie fell into step beside her. Behind them, Garrett was shouting at the sheriff. Her father was standing alone looking like he'd aged a decade. And Caroline was walking away from everything she'd ever known toward something she couldn't even name yet. That evening, in her boarding house room, there was a knock. Martha's voice. Someone to see you. Caroline opened the door expecting Jessie, or maybe the sheriff. Instead, she found a woman in her 50s, well-dressed, with intelligent eyes and a determined set to her jaw. Miss Hayes, I'm Elizabeth Thornton. I own the Mercantile on Main Street. I heard your speech today. I'm sorry if I caused offense. Offense? Child, you're the first person in this town to say out loud what half the women have been thinking for years. That we're not property. Not tradable goods. Elizabeth stepped into the room uninvited. I came to offer you a job. My bookkeeper just quit. You can read and write. Yes, ma'am. Do numbers. Better than most. Then you start Monday. $20 a month plus room above the shop. It's not much, but it's honest and it's yours. Caroline felt something break open in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or just relief? Why would you do this? Because 30 years ago I ran from a marriage my father arranged. Didn't have the courage to make it public like you did. Just snuck away in the night. Spent 3 decades wondering if I was brave or just a coward. Watching you today, that was brave. And brave deserves reward, not punishment. After Elizabeth left, Caroline sat on her narrow bed and cried for the first time since finding the contract. Not sad tears. Not scared tears. Something else. Release, maybe. Or recognition that she'd jumped off the cliff and discovered she could fly. Jesse knocked an hour later. You okay? I got a job. A room. A future I chose myself. That's good. That's real good. He paused. I'm leaving tomorrow. Heading west. Figure Garrett might come after me for helping you, and I'd rather not be here when he does. You saved me. You saved yourself. I just rode beside you. Still. Thank you. You going to be okay? Here alone. I'm not alone. Not anymore. There's a whole town of women who just saw what's possible. That's not alone. Jesse smiled. No. I guess it's not. 2 weeks later, Caroline stood in the mercantile calculating inventory when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up and her father walked in. He looked worse. Thinner. Grayer. Haunted. I came to apologize, he said without preamble. What I did selling you, it was unforgivable. Yes, it was. I was desperate. The ranch is dying. Your mother's grave is on that land and I couldn't lose it. So you lost me instead. I lost you the moment I signed that paper. I see that now. He looked around the shop, at her new life. You working here? Managing the books. I'm good at it. Elizabeth says I might run the whole operation someday. Your mother would be proud. Don't invoke her to make yourself feel better about what you did. Thomas nodded. You're right. I came to say I'm sorry. And to tell you Garrett's gone. Left town. The public humiliation. The whole town knowing he tried to buy a wife. It was too much. He pulled his business out of Cedar Ridge. Probably won't come back. Good. Also came to tell you I'm selling the ranch. Can't keep it without the cattle and can't afford to buy more. Bank's taking it next month. Caroline felt a twinge. Just a twinge. That had been her home. Her mother was buried there. But then she remembered the contract, the betrayal, the 3 years of lies. I hope you find peace, she said. I really do. But I can't forgive you. Maybe someday. Not now. I understand. He turned to leave, then stopped. You know why I really did it? Sold you. You said the ranch. That was part of it. But the real reason? You look so much like her. Like your mother. Every day, seeing you was like living with her ghost. I thought if you left, if you married Garrett, maybe I could finally stop remembering. Stop hurting. The honesty was devastating. So you traded my life for your peace of mind. Yes. And I was wrong. Because you leaving this way, knowing you hate me, it hurts worse than missing her ever did. He walked out. Caroline stood in the mercantile surrounded by dry goods and possibility, and felt nothing. Not forgiveness. Not hatred. Just a clean, empty space where her father used to be. 6 months later, Caroline was running the mercantile. Elizabeth had taken ill and Caroline had stepped up, discovering she had a talent for business and numbers and the complicated dance of managing people and inventory. The town had mostly accepted her. Some still whispered about the girl who defied her father. Others called her brave. Either way, she was becoming someone. Not somebody's daughter, not somebody's property, just Caroline. Jesse rode back through town one spring morning. He'd grown a beard. Looked older. Steadier. Heard you were running this place now. Heard you were in California. I was. Wasn't for me. Too many people. Too much noise. So you came back to Montana? I came back to see how you were doing. They walked through town together. 2 people who'd run away and found themselves in the running. They talked about the months between, the lives they'd built from the pieces of lives they'd left behind. You ever regret it? Jesse asked. Walking away. Some people say you could have had an easier life if you'd just gone with Garrett. Those people are idiots. And no, I don't regret it. Not for a second. This life is hard, but it's mine. Every choice, every mistake, every small victory, it's all mine. That's worth more than any easy life someone else picked for me. Your father died. Last month. Thought you should know. The news landed soft. Sad but not devastating. How? Drink mostly. Grief probably. Gave up after losing the ranch. Just kind of faded. I should feel worse about that. Should you? He sold you. He chose comfort over his child. You don't owe him grief. Maybe not. But he was still my father. Still the man who taught me to ride and read and think for myself. He was just also the man who betrayed all that for 20 cows. People are complicated. Yes, they are. Jesse was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm buying land. North of here. Small spread. Nothing fancy. But it's mine. Thought maybe, if you were interested, you could look at the books. Make sure I'm not being an idiot about money. Just the books. I mean, if you wanted to see the property too. Maybe tell me if I'm crazy for trying to ranch alone. Are you asking me to be your business partner or something else? I'm asking if you want to build something with someone who won't ever trade you for cattle. Or anything else. Someone who thinks you're worth more than money or convenience or easy answers. Caroline looked at this man who'd helped her run, who'd stood beside her in the square, who'd let her be free instead of trying to own her freedom. I'm not going to be a rancher's wife. I'm not giving up my work here to cook and clean and birth babies. Good, because I'm not looking for a wife. I'm looking for a partner. Someone who can work beside me. Build beside me. Someone who chose me the same way I'm choosing them. That's not very traditional. Neither are you. Caroline smiled. Real and full and true. No, I'm not. 3 years after walking out of her father's house with a canvas bag and $47, Caroline Hayes stood on land she partly owned, running a business she'd built, beside a man who saw her as an equal. The town had stopped whispering. Or maybe she'd stopped caring what they whispered. She thought sometimes about her mother's grave, about the contract that started everything, about the version of herself who'd almost gone with Garrett to avoid conflict or please her father. That girl felt like a stranger now, like someone she used to know who'd died and been replaced by someone stronger. The bargain she refused had cost her a father and a childhood home. It had also bought her something more valuable, the right to author her own life, to choose her own mistakes, to build a future from intention instead of obligation. Some people called her selfish, rebellious, unnatural. Let them. She'd been called worse and survived. The opinions of people who thought women were property didn't much concern her anymore. She was Caroline Hayes, businesswoman, ranch partner, free woman, and every morning when she woke up in the life she'd chosen, she thanked that 18-year-old girl who'd had the courage to walk away with nothing but a bag and a refusal to be traded like livestock. That girl had saved her life. That girl had given her everything.
For more West Wild Cowboy stories, subscribe, like and comment the city you are watching from.